don't have no regard or respect for Rex, and I think they all should be exterminated. What is American Gangster about? Them American Rex? Grateful and Alto and Nicky Bonds and Terry Ford.
Thomas Tootie Reese was Los Angeles' original gangster. Back before names like Freeway Rick Ross, Monster Cody Scott, Waterhead Bo Bennett, Gangster Wayne Huncho Day, and Michael Harry O. Harris, and long before the Crips and Bloods held sway on Los Angeles streets, there was one man who was considered the godfather in the black underworld, Tootie Reese. When you mentioned drugs, whether it was heroin or coke, you heard Tootie's name. An LA narcotic detective said he was the kingpin, especially in the 50s and 60s. Everybody was working for Tootie Reese. Tootie Reese was probably one of the first black who really did big dope. Thomas Tootie Reese, alleged kingpin in Black LA, was a legend in the streets of the city of Los Angeles. It's said that Tootie introduced freebasing in 1976 and had celebrities like Richard Pryor doing it. Tootie was a guy that I wanted to be like. At one time, Tootie was the talk of the town in the streets. He was like a hero before he turned into my competition, Freeway Rick Ross said. Court records show that Reese was arrested on cocaine charges at least 3 times, 1972, 1977, and 1980, before the explosion of crack. He said in an interview that cocaine emerged was linked to heroin's decline. The South Central kingpin of the 60s and 70s was no stranger to the drugs. As cocaine became the champagne drug, Tootie was in position to capitalize on. Lots of people were looking to leave heroin, Tootie said. Cocaine came along and took away the craving. Reese was mainly a heroin and marijuana dealer before cocaine came along in the early 80s. Before cocaine started seeping into the inner city by the tons, Tootie was known as the king of cocaine in the black community. Cocaine was a rich man's drug, and Tootie Reese was the man to see if you wanted to partake. But he was also looking for a way to make it more affordable. His introduction to crack came as early as 1976. Reese said he was in the Bay Area visiting a friend who knew some chemistry students, white guys, at Cal Berkeley. From them, his friends learned the mechanics of freebasing, and within a year, they were taught how to substitute baking soda for either turning powder, cocaine, into crack. Tootie was also the supplier for Felix the Cat Mitchell. But as the 70s turned into the 80s, the glamour of cocaine receded. The champagne drug of the rich in the 1970s became the plague of the 1980s. Freebasing gave way to crack, and the rich man's drug found its way to the ghetto, wreaking havoc on the streets with a vengeance, becoming an urban nightmare in the process. Tootie was a businessman and stayed hip to current trends. He was all about his money. You know, you gotta stay abreast of what's coming in, Tootie said. Crack exploded because of dealers like Tootie. The market boomed in South Central, Compton, LA, and Watts because the black dealers are the ones who can hustle in on the streets. Police reported, but Tootie found he had lots of competition in the crack game. Before the 1980s, Tootie had been viewed by law enforcement for almost 2 decades as the top black drug dealer in Los Angeles. But with the introduction of crack and the Colombian cartels pumping cocaine into the country at an unprecedented rate, it all changed. The old school gangster, Tootie Reese, tried to change with the times, but the former outlaw drug prince couldn't compete with the youngsters. His old school tactics eventually led to his arrest in 1983 by the DEA after Tootie made a multi-kilo cocaine deal and sold 2 kilos to an undercover officer. During a tape conversation with the undercover agent, Tootie told them that most of his customers purchased only 5 ounces or 10 ounces and that he had only 5 kilo size customers. On June the 30th, 1983, 2 undercover special agents contacted an associate at an LA gym to inquire into the possibility of establishing a regular connection for the purchase of cocaine. The associates told the agents he had a good source in Tootie Reese, even though Tootie suspected that the new customer might be police officers. He showed up the next morning in a blue Rolls Royce and had his son sell the undercover agents an ounce of cocaine. The agents finally met Reese in person at the Olympic Auditorium where they were attending a fight. Reese approached the agent and introduced himself, and an associate sold the agent another ounce of cocaine. Tootie was still paranoid about the agents, but continued doing business with them. At a meeting at a cafe on August the 2nd, Tootie told the agents he had an Iranian source of heroin. He told the agents he had already fronted $100,000 for 10 kilograms of heroin. He indicated that he had been in the narcotic business since 1965 and had a very high quality of cocaine for $4,800. Tootie also told the agents he received about 100 kilos of cocaine every 2 months. A couple of days later, he sold the agents 4 ounces of cocaine and an ounce of heroin for $12,400. The delivery was made in a green Rolls Royce. Tootie bragged to the agents some more, stating he owned millions of dollars of property, that he could supply any amount of cocaine, and that he had several people working for him. On December the 1st, he sold the agents 2 kilos of cocaine for $50,000 and they arrested him. By the time he was convicted in 1984, Tootie was probably the best known narcotic trafficker in this town, particularly in the Black community. The LA narcotics detective said Tootie, who said he dealt with Colombian suppliers, owned 3 Rolls Royces and real estate valued by the U.S. government at $2 to $4 million. He had caught up with the youngsters at their own game by dealing weight. The newspapers blew up the bust of LA's Black Godfather and made him seem a giant in LA's crack-plagued drug world. He became the face of Black crime. When it became clear that Tootie was out of the picture, the word hit the streets that it was wide open territory. And the LA narcotic detective said the day after his sentence was handed down, all the papers in LA County Jail were gone because all the inmates wanted to read about the demise of the godfather of drugs. Following a bench trial in July 1984, Tootie was convicted of conspiracy to possess cocaine with intent to distribute. Tootie was eventually sentenced to 35 years in prison for selling 2 kilos to a DEA agent. Tootie has been low-key ever since he got out of the feds until his death. Tootie Reese died a multi-millionaire and he wasn't a rat.